Steve Bowers welcoming you to Dialogue here at E+ TV6, and this is a splendid conversation opportunity because we've got 4 people that could talk for 3 days. We're going to try to do this in 30 minutes. I want to thank Coach Joe Holloway for putting this together. Doing this kind of in honor of Noah Long, who just left this life, and there are many, many coaches that have that we may bring up, but just in his honor, let his family know that we appreciate him, appreciate his work with this school system. Johnny Williams is with us. Jerry Hayes is with us. Bud Sykes is with us, and Coach O'Neal Henley. And at one time, all 4 of you were at Northside.
That is correct.
How did that happen?
I don't really know.
Okay, so you were the head coach.
Yes.
You were responsible for all these guys.
I'm not going to take that responsibility.
Okay. So, Coach Hayes, how did you wind up at Southside?
Well, how did I end up at Southside? Well, it was a long journey to get to Southside.
Okay.
But how I ended up with Northside is Coach Williams had coached me when I was in high school. He was assistant coach, and he ended up getting me at Northside as a young whippersnapper, and all these guys helped me, develop as a coach.
But how did you wind up at Northside?
Well, I played at Northside, played with Johnny Williams at Northside, and first job was at Chester County, and I was down there 6 years, and then they had an opening at Northside, and I came back to Northside and worked with O'Neal and Johnny, and then Jerry came later.
Okay. O'Neal, how did you wind up at Northside?
Well, I did my student teaching at Northside in 1965, and that spring, Burris Nichols was the head coach, and he asked me if I'd like to come out and work with the football team. At that time, I had no idea that I would get to coach, or actually, I hadn't planned on teaching. I was just getting the teaching certificate. But after going out and working with Burris and Carl Long that spring, I found out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and they hired me, and that was kind of a miracle in itself, that the way things worked out.
All right. So, Coach, you're responsible for all these. All these guys became head coaches.
I'm not going to take that responsibility.
Well, it looks like a pretty good staff. Now, Coach Holloway was talking about y'all were responsible for getting some new rules written, and Jerry, you said you got one rewritten.
Yeah, it was called the sleeper rule, where you would send so many off and send one and put guy on the sideline after everybody came out of the huddle.
Okay.
And you throw him a pass, and did that a few years in a row to a particular team I won't mention, and the head official was from that town, and he decided we're going to get that rule changed.
so the sleeper play went out
It went out of existence, and they made a rule that you had to be within 10 yards of the huddle when they break the huddle.
Okay, took care of that. Now, O'Neal Henley, you were responsible for what?
Well, we had a center eligible formation that we ran out of, and we put in this play where the slot would go out 5 yards and curl. Quarterback would sprint his way, throw the ball to him. Then he would throw it back to the quarterback, and our outside flanker would go deep. And of course, when the guy caught the pass, the whole secondary came on him, and we were wide open, and we scored the first time we ever ran that. And next year they made a rule that if the ball is passed across the line of scrimmage, it can't come back and be passed again.
Any other rules y'all responsible for making or breaking out here?
Yeah, but they may not have to do with football.
Okay, got that going. Why'd you guys get into coaching? Why'd you get into coaching?
It was just a natural thing for me to do. I don't know.
Okay.
Why?
Gary?
Well, I think a little bit is, Johnny could be responsible for that, me playing for him and John Oxley, and I don't know, that changed my life when I started playing football for them. They were real big on discipline and, making your grades and doing the things you needed to do, and it sort of changed my life, really, and that's why I got into it.
Basically, all of my life, I have loved ball and loved horses. And by the time I was 15, I knew that I wanted to be a coach if I never made the major leagues in baseball.
Okay. Try to do that and got right where we're supposed to be, right? All right, guys, Like I said, we could talk for days. I want to plug in. Joe, what do we need to plug in here?
We need to talk about one, they've all got some funny stories that
Okay.
players and
Coach.
things like that.
Well, one thing about coaching, one thing about players, when you talk to them, they seem to remember every play that was ever played, or once it gets triggered, right? You know, I've talked to young men that graduate, whatever, 10 years later, and they can still they can replay their whole season, their senior year or something. All right, so where do we start, O'Neal? What kind of story we got here? Of course, O'Neal's written books about this.
Yeah, probably the biggest character I ever had that we coached, Bud and I coached, was a guy named John Simonetti.
Okay.
And he was something else. He got hurt, and his foot, they put his foot in the cast. And John was determined that he was going to play that week. And I told him, John, you can't play with that cast. And he said, well, I'm going to see if the doctor will take it off. Well, I knew Dr. Thomas wasn't going to take it off, so I said, okay, if he says you can take it off, you can play. Well, he didn't. And so he begged me all week, said, can I just dress out? And I said, no, John, if you dress out, first thing I know, you'll be out there on the field. And so the night of the game, he talked me into letting him wear his shoulder pads and jersey. And he was in there with a line. We had a kind of a ritual we went through. The specialty teams went out and the line stayed in. And I'd gone out and I came back in and John's fully dressed. And I said, John, what are you doing? He said, Coach, I got a sign. I said, what do you mean you got a sign? He said, well, you know what? You said I couldn't play with the cast. Said, I looked down beside my foot and there was a weight laying there. So I took the weight and I beat that cast up so it's soft now. And he said, all I need now is a roll of tape. And he said, a roll of tape came rolling across the floor and rolled right up to me. Coach, that's a sign.
Because, Bud, you were laughing all the way through this, so you knew the punchline. Johnny,
Yes,
what
I
about
did.
you?
I didn't catch what O'Neal was talking about. I don't remember that. But,
Okay.
Well, that was after you
Okay,
retired.
after I had retired
Yeah, he
out, huh?
retired.
Well, the one O'Neal told me about you, Coach, was that player that showed up that had played soccer, and you started. He could. You put,
Tomas.
yeah, and you said Coach William. He was from where, O'Neal?
He was from Honduras.
Honduras.
They had a
He just
bad-
showed up, and he wanted to play football, but
Right.
he was talking about soccer.
Yeah. He couldn't speak one word of English. And I was assistant principal, and his aunt brought him in to register him. And I always asked if they played sports, and she said, yeah, he plays football. And I said, well, good. We'd ask him if he'd like to play here. And she said, well, now, he plays soccer. I said, well, do you think he could kick? Would he kick for us? And so he was going to try it, and at lunch, I carried him out to the football field, and I pitched the football to him, and he looked at it like, what's wrong with this ball, you know? But anyway, to make the story short, I did like that to motion for him to kick it over the goal, because I knew in soccer they kicked it through the goal. Well, he kicks it and lays it right over the goal post, and he did about 3 in a row, and I backed him up. And he did the same thing, and I kind of caught on. I said, he thinks I didn't want him to just drop it right over. So I moved him back a little bit further, and I gave him a signal to really kick it. And he does. He kicks it, and it goes all the way over on the playing field from practice field. I'm like, oh, my gosh, we got us a kicker. So I go run into Johnny, and Johnny, we got us a kicker. He said, don't get too excited about it. So we go out that afternoon, and he sees him kick. Well, the
And then I
next day,
became the kickers, coach of the kickers.
yeah, I'm going to
What
coach the
O'Neal
kickers.
said, what is it he showed up with?
The next day, he showed up with a Spanish dictionary.
And that young man went on to kick for the University of Memphis State. Right?
At Memphis
correct.
State, and also he held the record for the longest field goal there for several years. He may still hold it. I'm not sure, but
Yeah. All right, Coach, it's your turn now.
Well, I'm not going to get that dramatic, but I'm going to tell just a couple of little ones on Clipper Burks and Kevin McCarter.
All right.
This is in baseball, and both of them were center fielders. And we were playing at Milan, and it was drizzling rain, fly ball. Kevin dropped it and came to the sideline. Of course, I met him at the sideline. What are you doing? He said, well, Coach, a raindrop fell in my eye. And Clipper Burks dropped one, clear day. He came over and I said, Flipper, because he don't do that. He said, Coach, a fly got in my eye.
Always some reason at her. Coach Hayes?
Oh, I've got so many I couldn't tell them. I will say this about me getting into coaching again, and it's not a funny story, but it's actually a story, and it's Coach Williams. When Coach Williams came to Southside, he was right out of college, and he's driving, I believe, a GTO. Is that right, Coach?
Okay.
I mean, he's driving a
Convertible.
GTO. His
Oh,
wife,
wow,
if you don't
okay.
know his wife, she's beautiful, and I think they were engaged at the time you got married once you got to Southside, didn't you?
That's following
The
summer.
following summer. And I'm going, man, this is the life. This guy got a GTO. He's got a beautiful lady as his wife. I'm thinking this is what I need to
Need to
do.
do, GTO
And
convertible.
by the way, I didn't end up maybe getting the GTO, but I did get a beautiful wife.
There you go. There. All right, Coach, you're responsible for all this now.
Well, I guess I'll take some responsibility for them. It's really great to have worked with these people. They just mean so much to me and really mean a lot to my whole family. And I'm just thankful that I was a part of their life.
Okay. All right. Who influenced you?
Well, I would have to say the biggest influence on me as far as coaching was concerned was my high school coach, Burris Nichols.
Okay. You played where?
I played at Northside,
Okay.
football and basketball, and what little baseball there was, I tried to play it. I don't think we had much of a baseball program there, but that came later when Bud got there and took over the baseball program. But like I say, these guys have been a part of my life, and it has really meant a lot to me.
Tell me about Burris Nichols.
Burris Nichols, my high school coach, he was assistant football coach, and he was head boys basketball coach. Burris was also a farmer, and the one thing that stands out to me about him, you would have to understand the situation. We were down in our lower bottom one day, the whole family was, and we were chopping cotton. And old Medina Road was over across the next farm. And I saw an old red Studebaker stop out there, and it was Burris Nichols. Of course, I knew the old Studebaker and knew it was Burris because I rode home with him every day from basketball practice and football practice. And he would not drive me all the way home. He made me walk up the hill on Henderson Road all the way up to my house. And I never did let him forget that either. But he was just a great coach and influenced my life tremendously.
All right. Coach Hayes, influences in your life as far as coaching and all.
Well, of course, Coach Williams and these guys all influenced me as a young coach. They helped me get started, taught me a lot about football and a lot about how to coach kids, not just how to be a football coach, And then, of course, John Oxley was my head football coach, and he was a great influence, I think, on a lot of people. There's so many people that, you can go back to, but I'll tell you somebody that took me under my wing when I became a head coach, which was really surprising, and they're not going to like this guy, but John Tooker took me under his wing when I became a head coach. He called me all the time, he talked to me all the time, and he gave me a lot of good knowledge, especially about psychology,
Okay. Well, you talk about knowing football or knowing sports, but then also being able to coach kids. That's a different thing then.
It is a different thing.
Okay.
Just because you know the sport don't mean you can coach kids.
Okay. What does that take?
I think it takes a little bit of reasoning and understanding, that you don't treat anybody different, but kids are different. Mm-hmm. So you have to sort of mold your coaching to who you're coaching.
Okay. All right. Bud, who were the influences in your coaching career?
Well, probably I would have to say Jack Russell at Union. He was my baseball coach at Union, and probably he had the greatest influence on my decision. Now, I really love T.D. Reynolds and Burris Nichols. T.D. was the head football coach at Northside, and of course, Burris was the head basketball coach. Those guys, so probably those three fellas there. But I want to say this. I don't believe that any coaching staff I know, not that I coached with, had more camaraderie than this group right here. We knew where everybody lived. We knew where to go into the front door, back door, side door, whatever. We were at each other's house. We ate together. We played together. And we coached together. And I just, these guys, they're always in my memory.
Okay.
Just no question about it.
O'Neal, who were your influence?
Well, I guess I'd have to say R.A. Long, my high school coach at Humboldt. R.A., I just admired him so much, And
Why?
Well, he was the kind of guy that was like a father figure, coach. And, you have to coach according to your personality. And he was one of those guys that he could get a lot out of you just by the way that he talked to you. And it's kind of like Jerry talking about. Individual kids, you motivate them in different ways. But like he said, you treat them all the same. And R.A. Long was one of those kind of coaches. He would take an individual and know where their hot button was and make them play the best they could play. And besides R.A., of course, Burris Nichols was a big influence on me. He's the one that actually got me into coaching because that spring that he asked me to come out when I was doing my student teaching, I was a 155-pound center in high school, and there just wasn't any demand for them in college, so I never got to play any college ball. Yeah. But I loved the game, okay. And it gave me a chance to extend that love of the game in coaching.
Okay, well, that's a good move. Yeah, it's amazing how the weights and size of these players has changed. I mean, it's just stunning. I remember when I started doing sideline work with cable television, like, these kids are big kids. I was about the same size as a lot of the guys who played football when I was in high school. That's not the way it is anymore.
Oh, they're really, it's unbelievable how good they are.
Who's the best athlete you coached, Coach?
Well, that's pretty easy. Randy Renfro.
Okay.
Was just with us 1 year, but Randy was just a great athlete, running back, kick returner. He could just do it all, okay. And he did.
Coach?
Well, I don't think anybody would have any doubt who the best player we ever had was Jabari Greer. He's we had a lot of good football players now, and Jabari was a good football player, but he is the most phenomenal athlete I've ever been around anywhere, and they'll tell you that at UT and everything. It's unbelievable. If he had not played college football, he would have been an Olympic gold medalist in the hurdles.
Wow. That good an athlete. Bud?
Well, I have to second Randy Renfro there with Coach Williams. And then at JCM, I had a pitcher named Ben Howard that signed pro ball, and I think he played pro ball and in the majors for 10 years. So that was quite a deal.
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to say Randy Renfro too, because we had big plans for him. He was, that spring, we were going to move him to quarterback. I mean, he was phenomenal. And, of course, he moved on us. And that really made it for a tough year without him, because we had planned a lot around him being there. But also, Bud's son, Trey Sykes, was a mighty fine quarterback. I got to coach him. Well, Johnny coached him too, but I got to coach him 1 year as a head coach. And he and I had I don't know, with some kind of connection that I didn't even have to send a play in. It was almost like I could look out there and Trey would look at me and run the play. And he was one of the few that I ever trusted to check off plays on his own.
Was there a coach out there or a team that you always dreaded playing, or whatever, that, you know, you'd rather not, or if you could get them off their schedule, you'd move them?
Well, I don't know, because we played against some great coaches, and of course the one that comes to mind, John Tucker, at Milan. And we had to play them every year, and I think we beat him once or twice.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
And I feel that was a great accomplishment.
Okay, so there you go. Now, Coach Hayes, you said he helped you. When?
He did. He sort of took me as, I don't know why, but he did, and he did help me some. As far as any coach that we played against, I'll tell you right now, that was not in our mindset.
Okay.
We thought everybody we played with was going to beat. So it didn't matter. And that's a mindset you have to develop with kids. And when they develop that mindset, you've got something going. But I don't remember anybody we're going, oh, we're playing them tonight. So, no, we never feared that.
I would have to say the Paris coach, I hated to coach against him because he was a good
Who was that, bud?
strategist, and I can't even remember his name.
Was it Hudson?
No, it was after Hudson. Goodness, but him and then Jim Stowe at Lexington. Now, we could figure some things out against Coach Stowe and beat him, but when I coaching career, we played Lexington 25 times. Northside won 13, Lexington won 12.
Okay.
I don't know any particular team that we would worry that much about.
all right.
Probably Milan. We played them first year I was head coach, and we actually beat them pretty good.
Yes, we did.
And
Bud's still smiling about that, too.
yeah, it's kind of funny. Back then, we had some really good sports writers, and Dan Morris was the old Fearless, and he picked us to beat Milan, and he made a statement that after this week, Milan will be on the Northside bandwagon. So I found out that Coach Tucker, you know, he was good about using bulletin board material. So he goes to his cheerleaders and he says, now at the end of the game, when we're beating them, I want y'all to start yelling bandwagon, bandwagon. Well, we beat them, I can't remember, 36-6 or something like that. And right at the end of the game, the cheerleaders started hollering bandwagon, bandwagon. And Coach Tucker had a fit trying to get them to shut up.
I got to add something to that. We met after the game, and Coach Tucker, of course, shook all our hands, and he told me, he said, we're not playing you no more. Not playing you no more.
Got it going on. All right, guys. Okay. Oh, all right. I got a cue here. We got 5 minutes left. So, what do you want people to know?
Well, again, I want to turn it over to O'Neal because I want him to talk about the Little Liberty Bowl opening play
Okay.
against Jim Potee.
Okay.
And we played Humboldt.
All right.
All right, well, we had, our last game, we ran the isolation play probably 75% of the time that night. And we had a meeting before the Liberty Bowl. They fed us and all that. And Jim Potee says, I'll tell you one thing, Johnny Williams, you ain't gonna run that isolation against me. And so we lined up the first play after the kickoff. We ran a play we called Muddle Huddle. And what we did on that, we set all the line like they were huddling over to the left of the ball. And the center goes and gets over the ball, but he just pitches it over. A lot of people didn't know that you could actually snap the ball that way.
Okay.
And so we pitched it over behind him, and we're down to about the 20-yard line right off, and then we get in an unbalanced line, and we run isolation, 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 and we're in the end zone. And I don't know what was wrong with Jim that night, but he never adjusted to it.
Never
we
adjusted.
ran it all night long.
And Bud is still smiling about that too.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
That was a fun moment, and I'm telling you, it was cold. I guarantee you it was 20 degrees, cold as it could be, but we were warm on the
On the
sideline.
sideline. And back in those days, the Liberty, there were bowl games instead of the playoffs. So it's a whole different kind of
That's right.
football.
That's
Yeah,
right.
sure was. Coach?
I want to say something because you mentioned Noel Long, that this was in memory of him. And I believe I'm right, and Bud will probably correct me on this, but I think I'm right, that Bud was the new coach at Northside, Noel was the new coach at JCM, and I was the new coach at Southside all the same year in 1985.
Okay.
And just in remembrance of Noel, who was a great guy, and we all, I think that's right, am I right?
It was
Bud?
close, it
Yeah.
was close.
Yeah.
You talked about something else too, and that was media coverage in those days, and how important newspaper was a big deal in those days.
Yes, it was totally different back then. You mentioned me writing a book. Well, it wasn't that hard to write because my wife kept a scrapbook of all the newspaper clippings.
Okay.
And I could look at one of the stories in the paper, and I could visualize that whole game in my mind just from what they described in the newspaper. Of course, a lot of it I remembered, the big moments and all that, but it was a big help, and they were really good writers back then.
One other thing you mentioned, Coach Tate, you mentioned is how the technology has changed coaching now. The coaching is a whole different approach.
Oh yeah, when I was at Northside, and even when I first head coach, we just had the 16 millimeter film. You had to send it off after the game
And
on
small
the bus.
coaching staffs compared to now, right?
Oh yeah, we had 3 or 4 coaches. Well, you see 4 coaches, and that was a pretty good staff back when we were coaching.
Right.
Now it's 8, 9, 10
Yeah.
coaches at all these schools.
And then the technology with video.
Technology with the video and the computers and so forth is unbelievable. They got these drone shots. They can see everything on the field that's going on. It's amazing what it's transcended into.
Yeah. Because you guys talk about driving to find film and all other, and that was an innovation in those days, right, to have film.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
We, I was mentioning Johnny and Bud and I one night drove all the way to East Tennessee to get a film and came back and broke it down that night, and it was getting daylight when we left.
Well, one of y'all, maybe Coach Tate said, we never watched Sunday football because we were watching our own video.
We also drove up to somewhere in Kentucky and got a film, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
A scrimmage game.
Yeah.
And it just, that was the technology back then, and it was considered a great asset.
Thank you guys for doing this. Thank you for being with us, Coach Hallwell. We appreciate it. Stay here with us at E+ TV 6 because this is the place where the dialogue continues.